نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي. ربي يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين يا فتاح. ربي زدني علما. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين. ربي هب لي حكما وألحقني بالصالحين. ربي اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربي إني لما أنزلت إلي من خير فقير. آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu once again. Alhamdulillah, we covered until ayah number 242 of Surah Baqarah last time, and today we will be covering three ayat, ayah 243, 244, and 245. And we'll start with the word by word meaning, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I wasn't sure. Could you listen to it? I wasn't sure if I put.
We couldn't hear anything, Nidhi.
Oh, okay. Let me share again. I think I forgot to put share sound. Okay. I'll play once more. Inshallah, it should work now.
ألم تر إلى الذين خرجوا من ديارهم وهم ألوف حذر الموت فقال لهم الله موتوا ثم أحياهم إن الله لذو فضل على الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون.
Could you hear now?
Yes, we can hear.
Yes, sister, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم ترى. Alam tara means did you not see? It's an expression to say like did you not see this? And technically it means did you not see, but it also refers to like when we say seeing, sometimes we say did you see this? Meaning did you think about this? Did you consider this? Sometimes we use it in that sense as well. So and it is a way of trying to remind somebody or tell some like basically to incite curiosity of somebody. You know, do you know about those people? Did you think about those, or did you think a little more about that incident or something? So it is an expression which is used to kind of create a curiosity and to ignite interest. And do you know this like this? And like for example, there are different expressions that many people use to tell stories in different languages. So it's one of those things in Arabic, like it's look at this, or take the story that is going to come up and look at it with your heart and your mind and everything, and then ponder over it and take lessons from it. So it's an expression to say that, although technically it literally means did you not see, but that's what it refers to. Ila alladhina, ila towards, alladhina those who, kharaju, kharaja to get out of something. So kharaju, who went out. So those people who went out, min diyarihim, from diyar, from dar is a home, diyarihim, their homes, from their homes. So those people who went out from their homes, wahum ulufun, and while they were whom, they were ulufun, uluf means thousands, like they were in thousands, hadar al mauti. And why did they get out of their homes? Because of the fear, hadara, fear of al maut, death. And death refers to physical death also, and death also refers to moral and spiritual death at times, and it also refers to state of unconsciousness. Even sleep is linked to death. So there are the different things, but we'll go over that more in tafsir. But they went, there are thousands who left their homes for the fear of death. فَقَالَ لَهُمْ, then it was said to them, then said to them, sorry, not it was said to them, then said to them. And who was the one who said to them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, mutu, die. ثُمَّ أَحْيَاكُمْ. Then He restored them to life. So basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them die, and then He restored them to life again. And there was a lesson in that. Inna Allah, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no doubt about it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ladhu, la is a harf which means surely. It is just for the grammar students, it is not the harf of jar, it is the harf of taqid, la. So ladhu, he is surely the possessor of, what does he possess? Fadlin, fadl, the bounty, the blessings. He is the possessor of bounty, ala nasi, ala upon or for, annas, people, for mankind, walakinna, but, akthara, kathir is a lot of something. So akthara, a lot of, annas, people, a lot of people, la yashkurun, they are not grateful. And it is a fact of life that a lot of people we find they are not grateful for what they have. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, have you not considered those who left their homes in many thousands fearing death? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, die. As in they were trying to escape death, but they couldn't escape it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them that then He restored them to life. And Allah is full of bounty to people, to all people, and Nasi, but most of the people do not show gratitude. And we will go over a little more about this in a little bit. Then 244.
وقاتلوا في سبيل الله واعلموا أن الله سميع عليم.
وقاتلوا. So it's an order, فعل أمر, which means to an order to do something. وقاتلوا, and fight. في سبيل الله. في in sabil is a path. Allahi, of Allah. So the path of Allah. So fight in the way of Allah. Wa'alamu, and know. Ain, lam, and mim means knowledge, ilm. Like we say, Rabbi zidni ilma, Ya Allah, increase me in knowledge. And so here it is being used as an order. Wa'alamu, and know. Annallaha, that indeed, definitely, there is no doubt about it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Sami'un Alim. Sama' is refers to the hearing. Like Samat is our hearing. Sami'un, He is the all-hearing. He hears everything. He hears that which is said. He also hears that which is not said. He hears the whispers in our heart, and He hears the whispers in our head, and He hears every single sound that is going on in the universe, whether it's making a sound or not. There's a lot of sounds that we can't hear, but He hears everything. And Alimun, He is all-knowing as well at the same time. So here Allah Ta'ala is telling us, and fight in the cause of Allah, and know that Allah is hearing and knowing. And 245.
من ذا الذي يقرض الله قرضا حسنا فيضاعفه له أضعافا كثيرة والله يقبض ويبسط وإليه ترجعون.
من ذا الذي, who is the one who, يقرض الله, who will lend to Allah, give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, qardan hasana, a loan that is good. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking the believers, and He's putting this question of that, who amongst all of you is going to lend to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a good loan? فَيُضَاعِفَهُ, so that, and why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want you to give a loan? And we will explain this a bit more in the, what does it mean to give a loan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He will, the reason He's asking you to give a loan is, He is not in the need of anything from you, but the reason He's asking you to give is so that He multiplies it, lahu, for him, for the one who gives the loan, ad'afan kathiratan, and multiply it many folds, many folds. Wallahu, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yaqbidu, He withholds, wa yabsutu, and He's the one who grants. Like He's the one who, so he's the owner of risk. He gives to someone a lot, and He withholds from someone a lot. Wa ilayhi turja'un, and to Him you will all be returned. We all have to return to Him anyways. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, who is it that would loan Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a goodly loan so that He may multiply it for him many times over? And it is Allah who withholds, and it is Allah who grants abundance, and to Him you will all be returned. So we'll go over in a little bit more detail now, inshallah. So ayah 243. Until last time when we were the ayat that we covered there was a lot of ayat that we covered about marriage and about divorce and about somebody who gets widowed. And so we covered all the rules and everything about that and different things and how family, basically they were all related to family life and everything. And now a new topic is starting. And before this, it was all, we can think of it like there was a passage where there was a lot of talk about individual matters. And now we are going to read about community matters. So basically it was family life, individual life before, and now it is going to be social and political living. A lot of matters related to the community and everything. And we were told earlier in Surah Baqarah itself that we are a middle nation. We are an ummatul wasat. And what that means is that we have one of the means that has a lot of, it has a big wide meaning, but one of the meanings is that we have different aspects of our life and we balance all of those. We don't exceed in one and ignore another. So there is basic worship, which is a part of our life, individual worship. Then there's family life. Then there's community life. And we are taught to work hard and we are taught to give. We are taught to sacrifice. There is jihad, there is qital, there is financial obligations as well. And it's only, and the reason why family laws were kind of given first, and some of the scholars, what they have said is when a person is at peace with themselves and they have a proper structure at home and they can they have a sort of like a way to relax and everything, and their family is at peace and their family needs are taken care of and the family structure is maintained, then we are able to work more outside. It's very hard if somebody's has turmoil in their own individual or family circumstances, that becomes very hard to do much more. Even though a person might try to do more, but they will keep falling back because their heart is somewhere else or everything, and they won't be able to do that. And when we follow proper structure in all areas of our life, then we are able to work with a purpose. Then we become an ummah that is able to perform things and do things, and to come together as a nation, as an ummah, and to start doing, we have to, when we start with ourselves. So it's like you start at a grassroots level, you start at ourselves first, then you start with our family, and as we keep going, our circle of in management they say your if your circle of concern is big and you keep acting within your circle of influence, then eventually your circle of influence will start getting bigger and bigger as well, and you'll be able to make more and more impact as well. But as our ideas is basically our concern should be big, and we should act on whatever we can act on. Whatever Allah Ta'ala has given us the means to impact, we do that. And we cannot do more than that, but whatever is in our hands, we do that. And another thing, another importance or another lesson, another benefit of learning these stories in the Quran or different incidents that the scholars have said is that we are taught to avoid the mistakes of Bani Israel. So different mistakes are highlighted of the nations before us, and Bani Israel being one of the bigger nations because it's closest to us as well, and in the time scheme of things, and also they're still there and we hear about them and everything. So, and they were the biggest ummah before us. So we are taught to avoid the same mistakes as those people have done, because if we do the same mistakes, we will have the same results. Allah Ta'ala has a sunnah of doing things, and yes, we are this ummah is chosen. Muslim, the people who accept Islam, they're the chosen ones, but so were those before us. And when they were chosen and still they did some mistakes, then they got some punishments. And if we want to avoid those punishments, then we have to avoid those mistakes as well. And in the historical context, when these ayat were being revealed in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, so when Muslims, so these ayat were revealed at a time when Muslims had come from Makkah to Medina, and they had migrated. In Makkah, they were facing a lot of opposition, a lot of hardship. People were prosecuting them. There were like a lot of there was a lot of torture, physical torture, emotional torture. There was a lot of emotional blackmail from the families that, you know what, like we have stories that one person's mother stopped eating and she said, until you renounce this Islam, I won't eat again, or everything. And somebody's mom is not letting him enter the house. And one of the Sahabas, he said, Musa bin Umair, radiallahu anhu, he said to me, he was at such a wealthy family and he was so well off that he would have the clothes and perfume which were imported in that sense, right? And which was a big deal at that time. And so he would be so well off, and his mom would love him so much. Sorry, I think somebody's mic.
ألم تر إلى الذين خرجوا من
يشكرون.
Somebody's mic got on. So okay. So we were talking about, yeah. So these so in Makkah they were being the Sahabas and the Muslims. So the new Muslims, they were being tortured a lot, and there was all kind of hardships they were going through. And now they have migrated to Medina. So the Battle of Badr and everything has not happened yet, and this is the time when all these ayat are being revealed. And when Muslims had come from Makkah to Medina, because to be safe and to have a better life and everything, and to be able to follow the commandments of Islam easily, things had not become easier just because they had migrated from Makkah to Medina. First of all, when you have left everything, left your city and left your place that you've grown up in and everything, and you had to leave it because you were not safe there, and because now you have to go and live in a totally new place. It's not easy, although alhamdulillah they got the ajr of moving, but then it didn't, practically speaking, it didn't make the life easier. They didn't have much money, and some people were really well off there, and now all of a sudden they don't have any money at all, and they're like they don't have a home. Some people had to leave all of their families, and they are by themselves, and all their family members are there, and they have to leave all of their families. So it's not an easy place to be. And these ayat now are, in a sense, preparing them for what is coming ahead, because even though they have moved, the people, the Quraysh from Makkah, are still trying to harm them and everything. And so that animosity is not going to end. And as we see in the later parts of the Sirah, that animosity doesn't end, and it keeps on increasing. And also, they have left the Kaaba, but the Kaaba is going to be the Qibla of Muslims. And we saw the ayat before about the change of Qibla, and the change of Qibla from Masjid al-Aqsa to back to the Kaaba kind of denotes, and it was a symbol for the Muslims, that now you have to go and free this place from idol worshippers, because now you have to go back to it, and you can't just ignore it and start living your own life. Your purpose is to go back to it and liberate it. You have to, the Kaaba was built for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and you will need to go back at some point, and obviously that will require some kind of a military combat as well. It will not be just words that will get you there. There's a war that might be happening, and the Muslims are being prepared for it, and prepared for the Battle of Badr. Now, in the following ayat, and from 243 to 251, these ayat relate to a historical account of Bani Israel. So what happened is, after Musa alayhi salam, after the time of Musa alayhi salam, when so people got, before this, what happened is, with Musa alayhi salam got them out of Egypt from the oppression of Pharaoh, and the purpose was they had to go back to Palestine, and they had to go back to there, and they had to conquer Palestine. But there were other rulers there in the meantime, and nobody's going to give back their land and everything. And they were told that they have to go and fight, but they refused, and they said, we are not going to do it. And when they refused, they kept wandering in the Valley of Teen for 40 years. We've learned that before. And in these 40 years, when they kept going round, and there were many things that happened in that valley, we learned about that before. Like, they started worshipping Kaf at one point, and and there were so many blessings of Allah Ta'ala that Allah Ta'ala forgave them after this. And then we learned about the time when Musa alayhi salam had gone to the mountain and to get the Torah, and then when he came back and everything. And then we also learned about Man and Salwa, that Allah Ta'ala gave them the food, and the clouds used to follow them, and they had so many blessings. But in these 40 years, they were not able to go back because they had refused. They were not able to go back. And in this time, Musa alayhi salam passed away. And it is said, like some scholars have also said, that a lot of people had this slave mentality, like they were, because they had lived in a slavery for so long under the rule of Pharaoh, that they had lost their confidence in themselves. They were not, and they were not, by refusing the commandments of Allah, they could not rebuild that confidence and everything. So it took them a long time to kind of get over this. And in these 40 years, all those people who had started worshipping the calf, they passed away as well. So what happened was, like, so those people were, some scholars have also said, like, those people not like were not going to get there to Palestine. So so in this time, after Musa alayhi salam had passed away, then Yusha bin Nun alayhi salam, Joshua in the biblical text, and he became the leader at that time, and he became the prophet. And under his leadership, they conquered the Palestine. And some scholars have also said that Yusha bin Nun was also the attendant of Musa alayhi salam, who is in the story of Surah Kahf later on in the Quran, when Musa alayhi salam went to meet Khidr in Surah Kahf, and he had attendant with him, and this attendant, everybody said, was Yusha bin Nun. So basically, Yusha bin Nun was trained by Musa alayhi salam and everything, and then later on he became a prophet. Allah Ta'ala made him a prophet as well. And under the leadership of Yusha bin Nun, or Joshua, basically the Bani Israel, they conquered the Palestine back, and they got their kingdom back, and they went back to um, the Masjid al-Aqsa area, right? And but after they went there and they got the central power and everything, they started, they divided themselves into 12 small kingdoms, and these tribes were linked to the 12 sons of Yaqub alayhi salam. And these 12 kingdoms, as time passed, they started fighting with each other a lot. They started arguing, and there's money, there's power, and there's a lot of jealousy, and there's a lot of like friction amongst each other and everything, and not much patience with each other. And these things we see happen when it's very easy to get into these things when there is power and money involved and everything, and people start going away from the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or people start getting relaxed, or people start not being that strict with themselves and everything, right? So and also when what happens is when people get divided, when any ummah, they start getting divided, then their strength starts to deteriorate. And that is also one thing that was there before us, and that is also something that is with our ummah as well. The more we disunite each other, and there is always going to be differences of opinion, even two children of the same mother who've grown up in the same environment, even if they're twins, they've grown up in the same environment, they have the same upbringing, they have the same resources, they have got the same kind of education. Even the two twins, they do not agree on everything. They have a lot of differences of opinion. So it is natural for people to have differences of opinion, and even people of religion. And our deen allows for that, for some differences of opinion, and when both opinions are valid. But when people start taking those differences and just trying to talk about those differences all the time, and it creates a friction between each other, and not having like, okay, my opinion is valid and your opinion is more valid, is valid as well, but I'm more sympathetic towards this, so I'll follow this, and it's okay as long as it's not going against the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, you can do that as well. That's a different way to deal with things, and another way to deal with things is it's either my way or the highway, right? So like I say this, and this is the only thing which is correct, and anything that anybody else says is like basically they're kafir, they're not even Muslims, and I don't know whether I should pray with them, and this and that. All these kind of things that we hear, they create disunity. And what happens with disunity? The power of an ummah decreases. The people, and then what happens when they become like that, and when they get disunited, what happens is the outside powers, and shaitan is looking to attack, right? They take advantage, and the believers, they get defeated then, and they basically, enemies kind of attack them and everything, right? So the lesson for us from that is, first of all, that we should try to stay united, and we should refrain from topics in public domain which could be a bit controversial. If there is a need, obviously we don't shy away from things, but we don't when we know that talking about something will lead to friction, then we try to avoid those topics as much as it's avoidable. And when there is a need, there is a need. When there's a need to stand up for something, then we stand up for something as well. And may Allah Ta'ala grant us that wisdom on when to be very firm, when to talk about something, and when to be quiet about something. And that is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge says this is the information you have, and you're ready to say it whenever the opportunity comes. But wisdom is the ability to know when to speak what, at what time, and how much to speak, and how to speak, and everything. When to be firm, and when to be soft, and when to be gentle. So all this, and when to be firm, and when to be strong. So all this is the wisdom, and may Allah Ta'ala teach that to all of us. So basically what happened was, these people, after Yusha al-Islam's time, when they had come back, they had got all this power, but they started slowly, corruption started happening between them, and they started going away from the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then they started disuniting. And then the enemy, which is the Philistines, they defeated the Bani Israel, and they captured their ark. So their ark was basically, after Musa alayhi salam had passed away, they had they had a little trunk, basically they call it Ark of Covenant, which is one of the biggest thing in Bani Israel, and it was for them a symbol of calm and relief. So it was the Ark to them was like the Kaaba is to us. And what they would do is in that Ark they had some remnants, or they had some remains of man and salwa and the staff of Musa alayhi salam, and they had a few other things like that. And so this was something that they always carried with them. And when they got to a war, or when they were and they thought that this ark, the presence of this ark, gave them special power by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this belief gave them peace of mind and courage, and their enemies were terrified by it. But when they started to ignore Allah's laws and evil habits became a part of their lives, then the enemy, that Philistine, they came and defeated the Bani Israel. They captured their ark and they took it away, and they drove them out of their homes, and they took away their children as slaves and everything. So their children became slaves at their hand, and they were driven out of their cities and everything. And there were some people who were left. They actually ran away from the city, who left the city because they were afraid of dying and everything, right? So this is being referred to those people as well who went out and they were afraid of dying. So here the reference is today available in Torah as well, in Samuel 1, and it talks about the time of Samuel, the prophet Samuel, and the children of Israel, and when the Philistine fought. It says in Samuel 1:4, verses 10 and 11. So it says, "So the Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and they fled, every man to his home, and there was a very great slaughter. For there fell of Israel 30,000 foot soldiers, and the ark of God was captured." Right. And then when they had all basically disintegrated and everything, and some scholars have said maut here, death, refers to moral and spiritual decline of this ummah as well, of that ummah. So what happened was they had become like a sheep without a shepherd. And then a new prophet came amongst them, which was prophet Samuel, right? And what happened is he gave them that relief, and he brought them together. And Bani Israel came to him and they said that, help us appoint a strong leader for us, help us appoint a king for us. So Prophet Samuel was very old and everything, and they said that appoint for us a king under whose banner we could unite all together, and we could fight our enemies and everything, and we could get our ark back, and we could free our homes and our children who are captured by them. And then the Prophet Samuel, what he did was he prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance. And and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Prophet Samuel that the chosen one who is going to be their king, who's Talut or Saul, he would be the king who would come, and this king would come to them himself. And they should hand over the control of the kingdom to him, and he would lead them in battle against the Philistines. Right? And one thing that we learn from this is, when there is a time of trouble, sometimes new people come, and new people come into our lives, and Allah Ta'ala send new people to us who help us, and who become, sometimes when new people come and they become in charge of things as well, Allah Ta'ala makes them in charge of as well, and then through that Allah Ta'ala helps them. And Talut was a very tall, sturdy, pious, and intelligent person, and he was actually a person who lived and worked with his father on his farm, and he was not in any way one of the nobles of the Bani Israel. And one day, several of his donkeys got lost, and he went along with his servant to look for them. And they traveled and traveled, and they came near the land of Prophet Samuel, and he said, "Okay, let's go and ask him for help." And they went to see Prophet Samuel. And when they went to see him, the prophet recognized him as, this is going to be the king, that Allah Ta'ala, the person that Allah Ta'ala wants me to make him the king and give him the charge. And Talut also recognized that this is the Prophet Samuel. And when he was given this opportunity or this role, then the Prophet Samuel told him that the donkeys that were lost, they're on the way to your father's home. So don't worry about those donkeys. They're already on their way and they'll be there. So this was basically Allah's way of bringing you here. And when and Talut was very surprised by this, and so were the other people. And it is said that basically when the people had come to Prophet Samuel saying, "Appoint a king," they were looking for power for themselves. They were like, "He will make us, any of us, a king or something," right? And here another person came from outside, and who belonged to Some say that he belonged to the least popular tribe of Bani Israel, which was the tribe of from the children of Binyamin, and Binyamin was the brother of Yusuf alayhi salam, right? The step brother of all this. So it was not a very popular tribe. It was like the tribe which did not have a lot of power, but he came from that tribe, and he had no previous experience of leadership or kingship or wealth. Yet he was given, and he was used to hard work and working at a farm with his father and everything. Yet Allah Ta'ala chose him to be the king, and Prophet Samuel made him the king, and under his and under Talut's leadership, this army got together, and he put together army with a lot of strength and wisdom. And this whole army that he brought together, in fact, he put it with so much wisdom that he did not allow any men to be the part of an army whose hearts were somewhere else, right? And the stories that I'm telling you, it's not just related to this ayah. It's all a passage related to 243 to 251, but I thought it's better to kind of like just say the whole story now, and then we go over lessons with different ayah. So Talut, basically what he did was when he was putting together this army, he did not allow any men to be a part of his army whose hearts were not focused on fighting. So, for example, he did not allow any man who was married, but he has not consummated his marriage yet. So what happened is he's married, but he's not had a chance to be with his wife yet, and so his heart and his mind would be elsewhere. So he did not allow such men to be a part of his army. He did not allow any men to be a part of his army who had built a new home, but had not put a roof over it yet. So because his mind is still thinking about that roof and that house and everything, so he's not allowed there. And the army was also put to a test that they came near a river and they were told to drink only enough to quench their thirst and no more. But majority of people drank a lot more water, and those were not allowed to go ahead because they were not able to control themselves. And only few were left who were sincere and close, and those were chosen. And according to some scholars, the number of people who actually were left were 300 something, which is also the exact number of people who went in the Battle of Badr later on from the Muslims. So there's a lot of parallel going on at that time. And then this group of people under the leadership of Talut, they defeated they went to Palestine. They defeated the Philistines, and they conquered, and they killed their leader, which was Jalut, which is Goliath, and his troops. And the person in the army of Talut who killed Goliath or Jalut was Dawood alayhi salam, who later became a prophet, which is David. So we learn the story of David and Goliath, right? And so David or Dawood alayhi salam was the one who killed Jalut or the Goliath. And from here, the kingship time or the Khilafat time of Bani Israel started. And this time was around 300 years after Musa al-Islam had passed away. When so the time of Dawood al-Islam and then his son Sulaiman al-Islam, that happened, right? And but one difference in our Muslim Ummah was when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu passed away, Khilafat started right away, right? So there were first Khalifa was Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, then it was Umar radiallahu anhu, then Uthman radiallahu anhu, and then Ali radiallahu anhu. But one thing was that these people, the rightly guided Khalifas, they never, in their times, this division between Muslims never started in their time. Right? It happened only after these Khalifas were there. And some tensions started happening at the time of Ali radiallahu anhu, but they, in between and everything, and then a lot of groups started happening after that. All right. And so basically what happened was, if we go back to the story of Bani Israel, so they became the leaders and everything. And at the time of after Sulaiman al-Islam, so Talut, then Talut was the king. Then after that, Dawood al-Islam, who was both a prophet and a king, became the leader. Then his son Sulaiman became a leader. But after Sulaiman al-Islam, he had some sons, and two sons. One of them called himself Yahudiya. Before Yahud was not a term before at the time of Musa alayhi salam. Yahud became a term only after this time. And then at the time of the fourth leader, again the troubles had started with the Bani Israel, right? And so so here Allah Ta'ala is telling us, okay, all the story which is coming up, that have you not seen right? Did you not see about these people? Alam tara, did you not see these people? So see these people meaning we could not physically, obviously the Prophet ﷺ is being addressed here, but by extension all of us are being addressed. Every single person is being addressed. And also some scholars say that alam tara, although it says did you not see, but it addresses the whole group of people, and as in the whole ummah, and each one of us is being told individually amongst a group that think about those people, that what happened with these people, that they had left, and then they had in fact in a way they had died, their ummah had died, there was a lot of moral and spiritual decline, and yet then Allah Ta'ala restored them to life through a new prophet that came. It looked like everything is lost, it looked like nothing can be done now, and it looked like what is going to happen and everything, but then Allah Ta'ala restored them morally and spiritually. They started going back to the commands of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And it says in the Bible as well, in Samuel, in 1 Samuel 7, 3, 4, it says, Samuel said to all the house of Israel, if you are returning to the Lord with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your heart to the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hands of Philistines. So Israel put away the Baals and Ashtaroth, and they served the Lord only. So the Philistines were subdued and did not again enter the territory of Israel. And the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. The cities which the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel. So when basically people started following, when the believers started following the commands of Allah Ta'ala and directing their heart to Allah alone, that's when Allah Ta'ala gave them back the power. He restored them back to life in a sense. And then we should remember that the possessor of all bounty is Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. He can give it to whoever he wants, right? And there's another incident that is mentioned here, is that it is called the Waqia Khuruj, the incident of Khuruj, when people came out of their homes. And it is said that and it's also one thing very beautiful here is that no names are given in this ayah, and a lot of places we find is this incident, and there are many incidents that scholars have said it might be referring to this incident and this incident and this incident. And subhanAllah, it's one of the beauties of the Quran that at some places it does not give too much of names and terms and dates, and this happened at this time and that time, although we go over those, we try to find out those for our reference and everything, but Quran doesn't give us that, because it teaches us to focus on the lesson for you. Don't focus too much on details of things and get lost in those details and ignore the core message. Rather, the core message is what is the most important thing for us, and Quran keeps on, by omitting those details, Quran keeps our focus in the right place, right? And so some people, the different opinions regarding this incident, and some people said this khuruj refers to the time of Musa alayhi salam, when he was getting out of Egypt, and other people linked it to later when some people were ordered to fight, and they said no, we are not going to fight. Another context given is that there was a town in which some sickness had come. There was some epidemic, some disease, some sickness that had become very contagious, and it was spreading and killing a lot of people. And a lot of people had left, that wanted to, were so scared that they left that city. They started to go out of the city because they didn't want to die. They were like, this epidemic, this pandemic has broken out, and they were scared, and they left in thousands. They left their city because they were afraid of dying, and because they were afraid of getting sick and dying and everything. And Allah Ta'ala showed them death outside, right outside. So it's like they couldn't escape their death. They thought that by leaving the city they would escape death, and they couldn't. And some say it refers to the incident which comes later in Surah Maida, ayah 20 onwards, in which Musa alayhi salam addressed his people that, okay, this is what you should do, and they said, no, we are not going to do this. So what is the lesson for us? So first of all is that running away from destiny. We cannot run away from our destiny, and there will be, for each, even collectively as an ummah and even individually, our life, we'll always have, like, one problem ends and you're like, okay, the problems are finished, and then something else pops up, and one problem of another kind comes, and then that goes away and something else pops up. But the thing is, this life is not Jannah. There will be challenges all the time. Then one thing will go and something else will come and take its place. And if we are too afraid of things, yes, it is good to be cautious. It is good to do things, but when we are too afraid, it will create weakness inside us. And Allah Ta'ala does not want us to. Uh, there's a hadith to the effect of that a strong believer is dearer to Allah, is more closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is better than a weak believer. And what does that mean is that yes, there are things that we are afraid of. Yes, there are things we are worried about, but we take our due precautions, we do what we can, and then we put our trust in Allah, and then we don't fear too, because excessive fear or loss of hope leads us puts weakness in our hearts, and that weakness is where shaitan attacks as well and makes us hopeless, or make people like too afraid to that they start to run away from, and they start feeling that they can do something to get away from their destiny, or the whatever has been written for them, right? So we cannot run away from that. And wherever somebody goes, if there is death written for somebody, that death is going to come no matter where you go and what you do. So running away is not an option, like that. And another thing is that when those people who left for the fear of sickness, it is said that when they went out of the city, when they left their cities, two angels came and went over their heads, and they were such a big scream that all of them died as soon as they left their city. All of them died. And then the people from, and again, this is from tradition, so there's no this is a story that we see, but we are not, obviously we don't know, Allahu alam, whether how much, if this is linked to totally that or not, but the scholars have mentioned this as well. So and some things are also narrated to us from the traditions of Bani Israel, and if it was not if it's not refuted by the Quran, then there's no harm in accepting it. We don't derive fiqh out of it, we don't derive rulings for our lives out of it, but there is no harm in deriving a lesson, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ told us. So we can look at the traditions of Bani Israel in that sense. So now these people who had come out of the city and they had passed away, people from nearby cities came, and now the issue of their burial came up. So how are you going to bury these thousands of corpses, people who have died? And it was not easy. So a big hole was dug, and all the corpses were buried in it. And a long time passed, and it is said that after a long time, a prophet came, who was a prophet, Hizkiel or Ezekiel, it is said. And he looked at so many people buried, and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he made dua that, Ya Allah, what will, like, how do you give life again, like when people, because, and then this prophet, Hizkiel, was asked to address those whose bones were crumbled and everything, and he was told, Allah Ta'ala inspired him to make a dua and everything, and Allah Ta'ala raised them back again. And when these people got alive, and in this time their bones had crumbled and everything, and now the life came back to them, and their bodies were all put together again and everything. And when they got up, they started looking around in wonder, and they said, Subhanakallah, la ilaha illa anta, ya Allah, like you are so perfect. And this, and it was again, it was a miracle at that time. Obviously we don't know for 100% sure whether, but this is another tradition that has been made. And the lesson for us though is, there's no harm in taking lesson, that there is a firm belief in our religion. We are told that there is a time of death for every person, time and place, and we can neither postpone it nor prepone it by a second. And running away from death is redundant, wasteful, and it can even become a cause of Allah's displeasure if we let it create cowardice in ourselves, and too much fear and cowardice in ourselves. And it is also a reminder of this incident when people died and they raised up. It is also linked to the reminder of Day of Judgment as well, when everybody would die, but then Allah Ta'ala will bring them back again. All of us will, and it is said that we'll all be back right to our fingertips, our bodies, both body and soul, we'll raised up with bodies as well. And then Allah Ta'ala reminds us that with all of this, that in this, there is a reminder for all of us. And when we look at the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we should realize that it is Allah who is the possessor of all blessings, and we need to be grateful. But the fact is that majority of people are not grateful. And we should not be afraid of being a few. Sometimes what happens is, when we see a lot of people around us who are not grateful, or who are not thankful to God for a lot of things, then we feel, am I the weird one? Like, why am I like I always like, I feel like I talk weird sometimes, and people don't like, everybody. It's like, and it is natural for that doubt to come in the mind for anybody, that when we see too many people doing something else, then we are like, okay, am I sure that I'm going in the right direction? Why are all these people going there? But Allah Ta'ala tells us in the Quran, at many places in the Quran, that a majority of people actually are not grateful. Majority of people will not, they're so, and we should not be afraid of being of the few, and of the few who are grateful to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And everything starts with gratitude, of course. In terms of that, the city where there was an outbreak and then people left the city again, there's a hadith related by the Prophet ﷺ, who said that if you hear of an outbreak or a plague in a land, that something has happened, and of course nowadays it's very valid for all of us, that if you hear that an outbreak has happened in a land, then do not enter it, then stay away from it. But if a plague breaks out at a place where you are in it, then do not leave the place. And there is so much wisdom in it, subhanAllah, that if we won't leave it, then of course you won't be spreading the infection so much. And another thing here is that if you think that something has broken out in your area, but by leaving it you will escape death, then you will not be able to escape it anyway. So then if you are already in it and you're probably already carrying some infections of it, then stay there, and your body might have developed some resistance already, although we might not know it, right? And there is another thing is that there is always care for a believer in everything, and for the same thing which might come down as a punishment, like it could be a punishment for some, but the same thing could be a rahmah for a believer, right? That maybe that believer, if a believer passes away in a pandemic or something, and they has a faith in that, then they get the death of a shaheed, of dying on the. And the Prophet ﷺ told us in another hadith that there are different kinds of death which qualify as a death of a shaheed, as long as the person is a believer, the death of a martyr. And there are so many rewards of a martyr that the Sahabas, there were so many Sahabas and people after that who prayed all their life to die the death of a shaheed, so that they could get all those rewards and everything, right? And there's also an incident at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was the leader. What happened is they traveled to Sham, and when they reached Tabuk at a point called Sarak, and they came to know that some plague had hit inside that area which they're going to enter. And Umar radiallahu anhu, who was the leader at that time, he discussed with the Sahabas, what should we do? And no one had heard of this hadith before, except in that group, except Abdul Rahman bin Auf radiallahu anhu. And he said that he had heard the Prophet ﷺ say that a plague is a way in which previous nations were given punishment, and some part of it is still left. And the condition is such that sometimes it goes and sometimes it comes back. So whoever hears about it and is outside the city should not go inside it, and those who are inside should not come out. But Umar radiallahu anhu, he had not heard of this hadith. So what he did was he sent some people back to Medina to inquire more, because what happens is sometimes one person is relating and nobody else is saying. That it's not to doubt that person, but it's like maybe they make a mistake or maybe they've forgotten or something. So let me just verify, right? So Umar radiallahu anhu sent, so they camped outside the city, they did not enter it, and he sent someone back to Medina to inquire more. And when some people returned confirming that yes, this was a hadith, the Prophet said it, he took the whole army, the whole group, and they all went back. They didn't enter the city at all. SubhanAllah, this was one of the quality of Sahaba, and it was like they would have been traveling for a long time to reach there, and obviously so much time and so much money and so much everything. But just when they heard that and verified that this is something that the Prophet ﷺ said, even though we were not sure whether we should do it or not, the Prophet ﷺ had said this, so we'll agree to this. Samaina wa ata'na, we hear and we obey. And subhanallah, one of the things here is that another thing that it tells us is the importance of mashwara, the importance of going with even though Umar radiallahu anhu was a leader, he could have just taken the decision, okay, we are going in. But even though he was the leader, he discussed with his people and said, okay, what should I do? What should we do? Should we go? Should we not do? And then when he learned from it, from just one person, he verified it. So there's a lot of lessons for us, even in these little incidents and everything, right? And what we learn is that we should all make effort to save ourselves. Suicide is not allowed in our religion, as is killing someone else unjustly. That's not allowed either. And so we learn that there's so many lessons just from this incident. Whether we look at the past in terms of the time of the Prophet Samuel, or we learn from the time of Prophet Hizqeel, or we learn from the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the Surah, or we learn from the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, or the time of sickness and what happened and everything. There are a lot of lessons for all of us here to learn. Okay, so here the fazl that is being talked about, the fazl of Allah is one of the fazl that is being referred here is that He gave them life again. That life again was a fazl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So even the moral and spiritual life that we get, which maybe some of us were not away from the Quran, maybe some of us were not Muslims before, and we got in touch with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Quran, and it is like Allah Ta'ala turns, like mud into gold. It's like now you are getting valuable every day. You're getting more and more valuable, and Allah Ta'ala has is showing you guidance, is showing you things. So now you become more and more valuable. So it's a fadl of Allah. And what happens with the fadl of Allah? When you're getting that, then be grateful for it. And how can we be grateful to it? By following it, by doing things the way that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala wants us to follow. And then we do it in those ways. And then if you look at historically from that time, what was happening with the Muslims at that time, they're being prepared for that, just like the Bani Israel, although they were powerless, they were defeated and everything, they were out of their city, they had lost that ark and everything, but now they grouped together. Allah Ta'ala gave them life back again, and they went back and they freed their city, their land, their children, their ark and everything. So similarly, now you will need to go back to Makkah, and you will need to liberate Makkah out of idol worship and everything, and you have to establish Tawheed there, and you'll need to do all of that. And you can, so it's like a mental preparation that Allah Ta'ala will give you life, so you follow the commands of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala and be grateful. That is the way to go there, and Allah Ta'ala will give you life. You cannot give life to yourself, but Allah Ta'ala will increase you in these things, but only if you are grateful and you follow these things. And then what you do is, once you have that kind of morale boost up and everything, then it is said, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, and fight in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's only when you have this confidence in yourself and your family structure is relatively stable, then you can do things for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then fight for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now that Allah Ta'ala has saved you, He has given you life, He has given you so many blessings, exhaust yourself in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at an individual level too, for each of us, it is like when Allah Ta'ala has saved us, when He has given us life, when He has given us so many blessings, then we should exhaust ourselves. We should put ourselves, we should do things in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever we can do. And for each one of us, that path looks different. For somebody, it could be the path of knowledge. For somebody else, it could be a path of finances. For somebody else, it could be a path of doing something physically, and like maybe cooking. For somebody, it could be even like cleaning up some things in the masjid. It could be anything. But different people, Allah Ta'ala has given each one of us different blessings, different things that we can do. And we utilize all of them in their own ways, and we utilize ourselves, and we fight in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in doing that, know that Allah Ta'ala is all hearing and all knowing. He knows what the enemies are planning. He knows what shaitan is whispering to you. He knows what shaitan is whispering to other people. He knows how your enemies are scheming. You might not know how 100 kilometers away somebody sitting and planning something against you. You might have no idea about it, but Allah Ta'ala knows every single thing, who's planning what against you, who has in their heart what against you, and everything. Allah Ta'ala knows everything. At the same time, Allah Ta'ala also knows what is going in your heart, what are the sacrifices you are making, how hard it was for you to get up at Fajr today, and you still got up, and you were feeling so sleepy and you're feeling so tired, and yet you peel yourself off the bed and you're like, no, ya Allah, I have to pray, I have to do this. Or if it was very hard to do something, to donate, like you just had $10 and somebody came in front of you and they were hungry and you had to give $9 out of that, and you were like, should I give, should I not give, I have just this, but then you gave anyway. Well, Allah Ta'ala knows that as well. He knows every single thing. He hears everything. He hears the thoughts of fear that go in your heart and my heart. He knows what we are afraid of. He knows what causes us stress, what keeps us awake in the night, and He also knows what is coming. He also knows what has passed, and He also knows what will make us happy. And He knows every little effort we do, and He will not let any effort go unrewarded. He rewards every atom's worth, and even less. of whatever effort any of us do. So from the and if you look at the perspective of the Muslims at that time, when these ayat are being revealed, then from their heart, the fear of death is being taken out, and they're being prepared for the Battle of Badr. And when a battle is on the horizon, when a battle is coming up, then another thing required is money, because obviously what will happen is the money is required too, because um, uh, in a fight you have to protect the frontiers. There has to be weapons that have to be bought. There has to be, when an army goes from one place to another, they're not working, they're not doing it, engaging in trade or commerce, so they're losing out on all that money they would have earned. Their family's not getting all that money, and when they're going, they have to be means of their food. What will they eat when they're traveling for the army? What will they wear? They have to have their shields and things like that. So everything requires money for that, right? It's not going to be, and they require animals, they require transportation. How are they going to do it? They require water, and how are they going to carry water? How are they going to carry the things and everything? So there's a lot of things that are required, and the Muslims are being prepared that for the sake of the deen, for the sake of protecting your deen, you will need to fight. You'll need to fight and protect the frontiers, protect the boundaries, and you will need weapons. You'll need confidence, and you'll need bravery, and you need finances. You need to do all these things. But when you give, remember that Allah Ta'ala will not deprive you things. If you give something for the sake of Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala will in fact increase you, which is something that unless a person believes and has full faith, they cannot have this perception. They will always look at, if I'm giving this, what am I getting in return? Am I getting some fame? Is the person saying thank you to me? Or is my picture being published in the newspapers or something or not? If somebody does not have this firm belief that whatever I'm giving for the sake of Allah, Allah is going to return back to me, then the person cannot give easily. Then the hearts will be constructed. The hearts will be like, I don't know whether I should give it or not, right? And right after the talk of fight, of course, that's the reason why it makes more sense to talk about finances now. And also in today's day and time, it is all, some scholars have also said that the frontiers that we have to protect today are a lot of frontiers in our mind. So if you look at the societies today, there's a lot of intellectual wars happening right now. Like, just like we protect every inch of land, similarly a Muslim's mind and heart also needs to be protected, right? And it is actually a result of this war, this intellectual war of trying to get people away from Islam, trying to pollute people's beliefs and everything, that today we see so many generations of people with Muslim ancestry who are not Muslim anymore, who are Muslims in just name, and they're not following. They don't even know what Islam is about. So many people, and so many people who come to Islam, but they don't know much, and they are misled into something wrong and everything. And may Allah Ta'ala protect all of us from being misguided or misguiding anybody else. And it is said that we should build masjid, but or other than building masjid, we should also inculcate in people to go to the masjid and pray your namaz and make your namaz better and better and better, right? And and today, if we think of today's day and age, we need to put our share in this, wherever if we need to put our time to spread good knowledge about Islam, or if we need to spread our money, sometimes even to print out some flyers, we need to put some money out, right? Some money would be if it's like $10 or whatever, but we will need to put that money out. But that money that we put, Allah Ta'ala knows it, and He will return it back to us, right? And the way Allah Ta'ala has encouraged us to give something in the path of Allah is so beautiful and so heartwarming as well, in the same sense that Allah Ta'ala says, who will lend to Allah a loan that is a good loan, right? And a loan which is a qard is something that is literally, it means to cut something. Qardan means to cut something. And when you give a loan, what do? You have, like, say 100, and you cut it and you give something away from it, right? And then what happens with qard is, as opposed to sadaqah, is qard is something that comes back to you. When you give a loan to somebody, then what happens? When I give a loan to somebody, there's an expected return about that money will be returned, or something will be returned. And Allah Ta'ala is telling us that if you give something to Allah, it is not something that you will not get anything back from it. You will actually get it back. And Allah Ta'ala will not keep anything. He does not need anything from you. He will actually give it back to you. So Allah Ta'ala says that who will give to Allah a goodly loan, so that He multiplies it for him manifold and give it back to him, right? And of course that means that in this life the person gets more blessings, and in the afterlife there's obviously eternal bliss and everything there. Ibn Arabi says that after listening to this ayah, there were three groups of people that emerged. First group was some people from Jewish background, and one of their scholars, one of their Jewish scholars, whose name was Fahas, he said, Astaghfirullah, the statement, Inna Allaha faqirun wa nahnu agniyaha. Astaghfirullah. And he said basically and Abu Bakr heard, radiallahu anhu, he heard him say this, and he got angry and he slapped this person, Fahas. And so a rift happened between Abu Bakr and this and Fahas, and both of them came to the Prophet ﷺ, and Fahas complained to the Prophet ﷺ that Abu Bakr has hit me and everything. Abu Bakr told the story that this is what he said, which made me angry, and Fahas lied and he denied. I never said anything like that. And then ayat came in the Quran to confirm that he had said this, and it is recorded in Surah Al Imran, ayah number 181, that they had said this. And subhanallah, one thing is, like, what a beautiful family of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, that when when Abu Bakr, when somebody makes an allegation upon Abu Bakr, ayat of Quran come to defend him. And when somebody put allegations against his daughter Aisha radiallahu anha, our mother, then two Quran came down to defend them. And even today, the scholar says this maqam of siddiqiyat, being truthful, if we maintain, any of us maintains that maqam of being truthful, then Allah Ta'ala will protect us even today. Yes, Quran is not coming down now, but Allah Ta'ala will protect us, like Allah Ta'ala protects all His faithful believers who are true. And as long as we stay truthful, Allah Ta'ala will protect us. Another thing here is that, subhanAllah, the Sahabas, they would not get angry so much for their own sake, but they would get angry if something is said against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or something which is not fitting into the honor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that shows how much love and how much true worship and love they had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah ta'ala make us of those people who are like them. So that was one group of people one group of some Jewish people who said that your Lord has become in need from us. We are the rich ones. So does your Lord need money from us that He wants us to give you? And then they would make fun and jokes around this and everything. So and Fahas was obviously one of those people. And what he said was, Inna Allaha faqirun wa nahnu agniya, meaning, so your Lord is poor and He is in need, and we are the rich ones. And so that's why He's asking us to give Him alone. Astaghfirullah. May Allah Ta'ala protect us even from saying this. The only reason we say it is because we are quoting. May Allah Ta'ala forgive us. And the second group that happened, that surfaced after listening to this, was they heard this, they listened and understood this, but they become stingy after that. Like they become like stingy. So what we learn is, there are a lot of people who get wealth. Allah Ta'ala gives wealth to them, but not everybody gets the tawfiq to spend it in the path of Allah. And a lot of people listen, but they don't put things into action. They understand, but they don't put things into action. So the lesson for us is that we should listen, and then we listen and think. We should and yes, Shaitan will whisper to each one of us that, how will you manage if you give away all of this? What will happen to you? You have this expense coming up and that expense coming up. That will happen to each one of us. And the more we want to do, the more it will happen to us. But as long as we keep going, Allah Ta'ala will protect us. And the third group that came was of the Sahabas who gave right away. They heard and gave right away. So, subhanAllah, one of the Sahabas, Abu Dahda, radiallahu anhu, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, Ya Rasulullah, is this correct? And the Prophet ﷺ said, yes, Allah asks you to give towards His cause so that He can give you Jannah in return. And Abu Dahda had only 2 gardens, and he wanted to give both of them for the sake. He said, okay, ya Rasulullah, should I give both of my gardens then for the sake of Allah? And the Prophet said, no, keep one for yourself and give one. And then Abu Dahda said, okay, then be my witness. Then I'm giving the one that is dearer to me out of 2, which is bigger as well. It is better as well. And even his own home was inside it. But he said, I will give this one. And it had around, it is said that it had around 600 trees, which is a lot of wealth for a farmer, especially. That is a lot of, and it is his home and livelihood at the same time. So he gave that for the sake of Allah, and he went home, and his wife and children came out. He asked them to come out, and they came out, and his wife asked, what's the matter? And he told his wife, this is what has happened, and I've given this house, our home, and the whole land, and all the trees, everything, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I've heard this ayah and this everything, and I've given this. And subhanAllah, even the wife it was like what iman these people had. Like she's coming out with the children from their home, and he said, okay, I have given this now, this is not ours anymore. And she said, Abu Dahda, you have made a very profitable transaction. What a beautiful transaction you have made. And let's leave, because this is not our home anymore, we have to leave here now. And they left right away. And while they were leaving, one of their child had a date in his hand, because they were date trees. He had one date in his hand, and they asked the child to leave it out, and they said, this doesn't belong to us anymore, we have given it in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this doesn't belong to us anymore. And subhanallah, that's another thing, that is how particular they were of things, that even one date, this doesn't belong to us, I have already given this in the way of Allah, so I cannot take this anymore, right? So we give it like that. Another thing is that when we give to, we might be giving to any poor person, we might be giving to any person in need, but we are actually giving to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we are giving, and one way to understand what a good loan means is like a qardan hasana. What is qardan hasana? And we hear this a lot in our Islamic literature, is that we should give qardan hasana. So qardan hasana, what does that mean is, if we understand it in our day-to-day life terms, when I really love and respect someone, if there's someone I really love a lot and I really respect a lot, when I'm giving a gift to that person, how will I give that gift? I would wrap it really well. I would buy something that's really nice. I would put an effort into what should I give, and then I will give that and everything. So I'll give it in a good way, right? So when we are giving for the sake of Allah, we might be giving to a person in need, but we are giving it for Allah, and it is going to Allah, and it is Allah who is going to give it back to us. So we should give it beautifully, in a nice way. We shouldn't we should try our best not to make the other person feel that we are doing a favor on them. We should try not to publicize it. Like nowadays there's a lot of trend that you would give, like people would go to some people who are living in a slum or something, give them food and everything, and then take pictures with them. Okay, I've given you food, let us take some pictures and selfies and everything, and we'll post it, and we'll say, but what people don't think is what is happening to the child who's seeing you give the food and taking selfies and everything, basically making a mockery out of their misery, and making like a using their misery to satisfy your own ego, that you give something to them. But rather, if you give it quietly and then don't mention it again, right? It's like, so it is told that when you give from your right hand, give in a way that even your left hand doesn't know. So what happens is, when we give and when we try to put it in a person's face that, I've given you this and everything, it beats the whole purpose, and it hurts the other person as well. So a good loan is that when you give someone, give it in a nice way, in a beautiful way. In fact, Aisha radiallahu anha, what she used to do was, whenever she would give charity, she would put perfume on her money, so that, because she said that it is going to Allah's hand first and then to somebody else, right? Another thing is, when we give for the sake of Allah, we should give from halal income only. We should not give from something that is not halal. If some money like that comes to us from somewhere, we should try not to. We should try to give only halal money in that sense. Not any money that has come from. So maybe somebody had bad habits before. Maybe somebody was into gambling or things like that before, and then they later became Muslim or became practicing Muslim. Now that money from gambling, you don't give it to masjids and everything. Like give it somewhere else, but don't utilize it for the sake of building a masjid and things like that. Right? And another thing is that when we give qars, when we give loan to some people, it is actually encouraged to give loans. The purpose of loans in Islam is not to make money, because interest is obviously not allowed. We'll come later about the ayah of interest. Interest is obviously not allowed. But when we give loan, the purpose of giving loans in Islam is to help somebody out. And when we give loans, what are we doing? It is actually given double the reward than a sadaqah. Right? A sadaqah is one reward, then giving a loan to somebody who's in need is twice the reward. Why? Because giving a loan would encourage them to work hard and return it as well. And every day that the loan is on him, when we give sadaqah is like, okay, done deal. You give it and it's over, it's done. But when you give qars to someone, then it is like, there's a whole tension of when to get it back, how to get it back, and you're giving the other person, supposing the other person is going to give it back in a month. They took $1,000 from somebody and they're going to give it back in a month. They couldn't give back in a month, and you said, okay, fine, you take one more month. Now it is a stress on you as well, that okay, you've given one more month and everything, and obviously there's no interest, so you're going to get 1,000 only, whether you get back in 1 month or 2 months or 1 year. You're still going to back the same amount of money. And a person who has anything, if we prefix it that we gave $1,000, but fix that you are going to give me back 1,001. If we prefix it for whatever reason, that becomes riba, that becomes sood, right? So we are not allowed that in Islam. We said that whatever, obviously in an Islamic society right now we don't have. Sometimes people are stuck in loans, and if any of us is, may Allah Ta'ala forgive us and may Allah Ta'ala get us out of them as soon as possible, so that we can be free of those things. But we live in a society where we live in, it is very common. But if we had that option, then we should never give, at least, right, loans like that, in which we are making interest on that. And if somebody who has taken a loan from somebody and they're giving it back, then there is no harm. If nothing was prefixed but they just want to give a little bit more back, then there's no harm on them. It's like, so it was nothing prefixed and everything, then they can give back, right? And one last thing before we conclude for this is that the way Allah Ta'ala has asked to give for His sake is that if we can imagine that how can we even think of refusing when Allah is asking us to give for His sake? For example, if you think that there's a mom who buys a phone for a child, and then she asks the child, "Can I make a call from your phone?" And does it suit the child to refuse? Like, the mom bought him or her the phone anyway. Who gave you all of, and if we think of this, who gave us all of this that we have anyway? It is Allah who gave us all of this anyway. And if He asks us to give something for His sake, then subhanallah, that He has to even ask. And the way He has put it like that, that give him a loan and he will give back to you, is not for him. This is to suit our mentality. Like, as human beings, we always think and this is something in us, we think in the terms of profit and loss. Like, if I do this, what am I going to get in return? If I do that, what am I going to return? And Allah Ta'ala addresses our psychology, and He knows us better than we know ourselves, and He knows what will appeal to us. And as long as it is in a good sense, there's no harm in wanting return as well, right? So Allah Ta'ala tells us that He asks us to give a loan, and then He reminds us while giving that it is Allah. Whatever you have, whatever risk you have, whether it's money, whether it's children, whether it's husband or wife, whether it's parents, whether it's love from anybody, whether it's respect from anyone, whether it's our education, whether it's our jobs, our careers, whether it's any of our resources, our vehicles that we drive in, whether it is the roads that we drive on, whether it is the food that we eat, whether it is the air that we breathe, whether it is health, the ability to move our limbs, the ability to see, the ability to hear, whatever we have is all what Allah has given us. And it's all a risk from Allah. And He is the one who withholds. To some, He gives something more. And from some people, Allah Ta'ala withholds some things. There are some people who cannot see. And Allah Ta'ala has withheld that, the ability to see from them. And other people on them can see. There are some people who cannot hear. They can, and there's some people who can't talk. There's some people who have, there are different things that Allah Ta'ala has withheld from different people, and there are other things that Allah Ta'ala has given to those people in abundance, and there are other things that Allah Ta'ala has given to other people in abundance. But remember that whatever Allah Ta'ala has given you or withheld, it is to Him that all of you are going to be returned anyway. This life is a test, and it is supposed to be a test. And here, nobody would have everything perfect. Perfection does not belong in this world. Things will never be perfect, and there'll be one challenge after another. And whatever we get, whatever we don't get, it is all from Allah Ta'ala, and we will all be returned to Him. And we need to remember that because we are going to return to Him, then whatever we do now, it should be geared towards where we are going to return, and then to teach ourselves and people around us. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who, when they spend for the sake of Allah. When they think and they act and they feel, and they are able to take lessons out of the stories, out of the ayat of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, whether it is the ayat in the Quran or whether they are ayat in the universe around us. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who understand that when Allah Ta'ala asks us to give for His sake, it is actually for our sake. We are doing it for ourselves. If we are giving our time, if we're giving out our energy, if we are using our money, if we are using our talent, if Allah Ta'ala has given us the ability to speak to someone, and there are people who listen to us, and we can use it for the sake of spreading the message of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, then that is a big blessing that Allah Ta'ala has has blessed us with, and we need to be grateful for that. May Allah Ta'ala make us of those people who are grateful, because Allah Ta'ala himself promised that if you're grateful, I will give you more. And Allah Ta'ala is not the one who goes ever goes back on his promise. He is the one who has the most power, and he is the one who can fulfill, or the only one who can fulfill all his promises, and he will fulfill all his promises to us. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم. آمين يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. شكرا أستاذ.